So today, our focus is on searching for the divine in the animal kingdom. And I want to begin by asking you a question. How might you experience or perhaps recognize the divine when you approach its presence within the animal kingdom? I think you will find that this assignment presents certain challenges that, were simply not present in our search for the divine in the plant kingdom. Even the mere consideration of the divine indwelling animals can be a sizable leap for many people to make. Indeed, the tendency of many people is to see animals as being less than themselves. And, you can observe this bias in the way some people interact with their pets. For example, it is quite common to see people walking their dogs, but paying absolutely no attention whatsoever to the dog. Indeed, the person may only seem capable of attending to the content on the phone. Oh, yes, technically, the person and the dog are sharing the same vicinity of space, but we should not mistake the person's checked out behavior for actually being with the dog. Often, the only way the dog can get the person's attention is by either stopping suddenly or attempting to run away. Now, in both cases, there is a sudden tug on the leash that may arouse some attention from the human. In some cases, the person may be so engrossed with the phone that he or she is totally oblivious to even the pet's pulling on the leash. Indeed, the person may stop walking, but not even look up to see what is going on for the pet they claim to love. This situation certainly begs a question for our consideration. Between the pet and the person, who exactly is more awake and therefore more available to receive the divine? To be sure, if a person does not make him or herself available for a loved pet, do you think she or he is actually available for an encounter with the divine? Well, probably not, since apprehending mind is likely nowhere within the person's reach. Well, here's another question for you. When one searches for the divine, what is one actually searching for? Some, I think, are looking for some kind of feeling, or perhaps a personal sign, or even some paranormal encounter. Yet, as you are all discovering, feelings, just like all states of mind, are highly mutable and perpetually changing. Indeed, this fact alone reveals them to be unreliable. You see, the presence of the divine always arises or arrives cloaked in some type of consciousness. Indeed, the divine is consciousness, and it expresses itself in so many more ways than humans can possibly imagine. It, consciousness with a capital C, continually recycles itself through various demonstrations of consciousness with a small c. While most of you may not pay all that much attention to where the capital letters go, when it comes to exploring these demonstrations of consciousness in the animal kingdom, the key word is diversity. Now, while both plants and animal kingdoms display wide ranges of diversity of form, the demonstrations of consciousness are much narrower in plants than in animals. Now, this is because the spectrum of sensorial events for plants forms a much narrower bandwidth than is the case for animals. Of course, the divine does reveal itself in countless expressions of beauty. However, all too often, People see beauty as an end in itself, and thus they neither recognize nor apprehend the greater dimension of the consciousness behind that beauty, or perhaps within it. Truly, the very presence of beauty in any form is clear evidence of the divine revealing itself. We can know this because of the sheer impact beauty has on the heart. Now, of course, the most beautiful element in creation is truth, or so claimed John Keats in his poem, Ode to a Grecian Urn. As he looks upon the urn about which he writes, he sees a timeless message for humanity revealed in the two painted images on the porcelain. Thus he says, beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. Well, what Keats is actually saying is that the beauty of truth lies in its imperishable nature, while the truth of beauty is capable for feeding the heart. While there is much beauty to behold in both physical and emotional lives of animals, if observed at all, it is probably recognized in an animal's ability to negotiate its world in a way humans cannot. For example, it may be perceived in the speed of a cheetah or the spring of a deer, perhaps in the unmitigated strength of an elephant, or even in the showy plumage of exotic birds. Yet one might not witness the beauty of these animals if, say, one is being chased by the cheetah or feels the earth pounding under a raging elephant. Indeed, excuse me, some only see the beauty of the deer or bird as an object of a hunt. While all of these wilder scenarios may indeed present encounters with the divine, the mind does not usually interpret them as such, does it? You see, when the divine attempts to reveal itself through the animal kingdom, it is at a distinct disadvantage, but not from its side of the equation. Unfortunately, many humans simply do not see the true nature of animals in their own right. Instead, the entire animal kingdom is often seen through a lens of being less than human. Now, if one truly believes that premise, what might it say about his or her understanding of the divine? Indeed, does God see humans as having greater value than animals in the overall evolution of the cosmos? I urge you to think carefully before answering that question. Well, as it turns out, many people believe that animals are living on Earth only for their benefit. They may see them as a source of food, as working servants, or as subjects for scientific investigation, taxonomy, and sadly, experimentation. Yet, in all these cases, animals are viewed only in terms of what they can do for humans. Fortunately, there is a growing tendency among people who have animal companions to learn to relate to them in a much deeper manner. When the sense of companionship is strong, an animal is less objectified and seems perhaps more like a family member than an outsider brought in only to help. There's a wonderful book written back in 1997, I believe, that some of you not only read, but were inspired by the text. It is still available in print, and many of you will surely recognize the title, Behaving as If the God in All Life Mattered. The author, Michaela Small Wright, sets forth her own call for humanity to awaken to the presence of the divine indwelling both animals and plants. Indeed, it is time, my friends, to see the divinity bursting forth in all planetary life. And if you do, I suspect you will be changed, perhaps radically changed. Well, because animals do not use spoken language, they are often deemed to be less intelligent than humans. And while this categorical judgment does need to be explored, so do its ramifications. Indeed, if animals are truly less than humans, it's probably okay to subject them to some of humanity's less than holy activities, right? So rather than protecting their innocence, some humans choose instead to inflict pain and suffering simply because they can. In fact, humans belong to the only species that is blinded by its own arrogance, sometimes woefully so. Indeed, many animals can run faster, jump higher, and react to danger quicker than humans. Some can even fly. An eagle can spot a rabbit in the underbrush from a half-mile above. Able to hear infrasound, or ultra-low frequencies, a pigeon can hear the approach of a distant storm, or even an earthquake. A polar bear can smell a seal from 32 kilometers. That's about 20 miles. What's more, from nearly a kilometer away, it can smell the hole in the ice through which a submerged seal is breathing. Well, the strongest tasters in the animal kingdom are catfish, catfish, since they have over 100,000 taste receptors all over their bodies. Living in dark and murky environments where sight is simply not possible, these humble and utterly unassuming creatures use taste like a kind of radar to find food. Of course, consciousness is activated or launched, you might say, from sense perception, although that certainly is not all there is to it. Indeed, most folks seldom consider the inner world or emotional dimensions of animals. Yet it is clearly present, whether or not it is referenced by humans. To those who can see with awakened eyes, the wide diversity of sensual acuity among animals reveals much more than mere biological diversity. While sense perception is clearly necessary for many life processes, it also fosters curiosity or a search for new information. Indeed, curiosity is a fundamental characteristic that can be observed across all animal species. Now, this is even true of single-cell organisms, at least to some degree. Yet, this fact alone should make it abundantly clear that even in seemingly modest quantities, the presence of consciousness is evidence of some larger reality, one that expands far beyond mere survival and reaches into enrichment. Indeed, animals are continually proving themselves to be capable of thought, empathy, and intelligence. For those who can see with penetrating awareness, all forms and levels of consciousness are holy. Indeed, they are reflections of the divine indwelling matter, or better, spiritualizing matter. From the human side, it may appear that all Earth's living beings are participating in exactly the same reality. namely the one they experience. While this is not at all the case, it simply does not occur to most humans to investigate the matter further. For making their way in the world, humans primarily depend upon their sense of sight. So it seems only natural to conclude that this is true for animals, or all animals as well. However, many animals negotiate their respective worlds on various other forms of perception, some of which humans may use, but probably at a lesser capacity. So the person walking the dog in the above-mentioned example surely comprehends that the dog's sense of smell is much keener than his or her own. However, she or he has probably never attempted to apprehend how these varying capacities influence the experiences of them both. Indeed, while humans possess about 6 million olfactory receptors, dogs can have as many as 300 million. What's more, the part of the dog's brain that analyzes smells is roughly 40 times greater than in the human brain. Indeed, a dog has over 1,000 genes dedicated exclusively to olfaction. Yet, compare this with the olfaction genius of elephants, who have roughly twice the number of genes dedicated to smelling. Indeed, an elephant can smell water from 12 miles away. Of course, the nose of a dog functions quite differently than a nose or a human nose. When humans inhale, they both smell and breathe through the same nasal airways. When dogs inhale, a fold of tissue just inside the nostril separates these two functions. When exhaling through the nose, humans expel used air via the same airway passage it entered. When dogs exhale, the expelled air exits through the little slits in the sides of their noses. Now, due to this rather curious adaptation, the exhaled air of the dog actually swirls out in a manner that draws new odors into the dog's nose. Now, what is so remarkable about this feature is that it allows members of the canine family to smell continuously, even when exhaling. While dogs can wiggle each of their nostrils independently, humans cannot. Now, for dogs, this is an important fine motor skill because it helps them determine which nostril has received an odor. Now, since this is a faculty unknown to humans, it may not sound all that impressive. However, this is the capacity, that allows a dog to track odors to a given source. Snakes also demonstrate a keen sense of directionality in their smell detection. However, instead of using nostrils, snakes smell via forked tongues, and the olfactory sensories on those two forks smell independently of each other. Now, clearly, there is some very complicated neurology at work here. Even with very limited eyesight, by flicking their tongues, they are able to follow the trail of their prey, noting correctly whether it veers off to the right or the left. When a snake bites, say, a mouse, the mouse often runs away when the snake withdraws its fangs. Now, of course, the injected venom will eventually kill the mouse, although its flight path may take it a fair distance from the original strike point. Yet the snake's keen sense of directional smell will lead it precisely to the dead or dying mouse. While a dog can smell with roughly 100 times the acuity of humans, a bear can smell 7 times better than even a bloodhound. The olfactory bulb in the bear's brain is roughly 5 times larger than in humans. What's more, they possess a vast nasal cavity that is structured much like a honeycomb, and it is lined with millions of scent receptors. Now, this is why a polar bear can smell a seal from 32 kilometers. That's about 20 miles. And it can smell the hole in the ice through which a submerged seal is breathing from nearly a kilometer away. Exploring how animals hear will reveal the amazing differences by which various species greet and interpret their differing sonic worlds. For example, humans can hear sounds falling between the range of 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. So what is a hertz? Well, it is a measurement of occurrence against time. 1 hertz is a pattern of, say, 1 vibration per second. Thus, a sound registering at 20 hertz results from a source that is vibrating at the rate or frequency of 20 times per second. For a sound to occur at 20,000 hertz or 20 kilohertz, its source is vibrating at a rate of 20,000 times per second. For dogs, the average hearing range is between 67 and 45,000 hertz. For cats, it is from 45 to 64,000 hertz, although some have responded to sounds as high as 79,000 hertz. Cattle, perhaps surprisingly, hear sounds ranging from 23 to 35,000 hertz, which is a range considerably wider than humans can hear. Now, if you are curious, the internet can supply you with a wealth of information regarding auditory ranges for most animals. But hopefully these few examples will help you appreciate the differing sonic worlds of various forms of consciousness. So, sound frequencies vibrating below 20 hertz are called infrasonic, while sounds vibrating faster than 20,000 hertz are termed ultrasonic. Now, as you can see, science has used the human hearing range as a scale of sorts for categorizing sound frequencies. Yet the varying sonic realities of animals says a lot about the worlds in which they experience. For example, a rattlesnake has quite limited auditory capacity since it can only detect sound falling between a range of 50 to 1,000 hertz. Elephants have excellent hearing and can detect sounds within a range of 16 to 12,000 hertz. An owl can discriminate sounds occurring between 200 and 12,000 hertz. A mouse has a sonic range of between 1,000 and 91,000 hertz, which means most of the sounds it makes are inaudible to humans. A bat has a hearing range of between 2,000 and 110,000 hertz, allowing it to hear the rapid vibrations of a moth's beating wings. However, the most remarkable hearing of all belongs to the greater wax moth, which can actually hear the sonar emitted by bats. Indeed, their range of hearing can detect frequencies as low as 10,000 hertz, or mid-range for humans, and as high as 300,000 hertz, or roughly 3 times the upper limit of bat hearing. Well, hopefully these details can reveal a reality that might not be at all obvious to the casual observer. While these comparative figures may seem to be only isolated facts to tantalize comprehending mind, try to look beyond the statistical data and allow apprehending mind to grasp something quite marvelous. Each animal species has its own experiential environment, and species to species, they are amazingly divergent. Now, in using the word environment, I'm not referring to the physical space that is shared by all beings. Rather, I'm referring to a kind of sensory bubble that various species inhabit and which no other species can enter. Now, hopefully, the example I'm about to use can, clarify these sensory bubbles in and of themselves, which comprise entirely different experiential realms. What's more, by their very presence, they demonstrate that even though animals share the same spatial reality as humans, they actively live in completely different experiential realms. So let's see if I can help you apprehend this vast sensorial reality, or perhaps make it come to life, albeit in a much smaller gamut. Here, I want to borrow an example from Ed Yong, a scientist or a science writer for The Atlantic and, well, some other publications as well. In his book, An Immense World, his fresh approach to the field of animal consciousness is actually quite remarkable, and it clearly reveals the engaged curiosity of a fresh eye on the subject. While he does not broach the matter of indwelling divinity, its presence should be clear to all who can read between the lines, so to speak. Well, borrowing from one of his examples, imagine for a moment a spacious barn as our setting, one large enough to bring together various animals into a shared space. The largest is an elephant, but let's also include a group of smaller beings, such as a mouse, a robin, an owl, a bat, a rattlesnake, a spider, a mosquito, and a bumblebee. Now, place yourself in the picture as well. Now, the purpose of this little mental experiment is to discover how you and all these different representatives of the animal kingdom actually perceive one another. Becoming aware of the space in which they find themselves, all these animals begin to use their sense capacities to read the room and gain some experience of who else might be sharing the space. Somewhat like a periscope, the elephant raises its trunk and begins to swivel it in all directions. The rattlesnake, remaining still, flicks its tongue several times. Putting its antennae to work, the mosquito buzzes through the air, but it is also gathering information. All three of these animals are smelling the room, taking in multiple scents with their various organs of olfaction. Then, each draws conclusions from the data it processes. For the elephant, nothing in particular draws her attention, but the rattlesnake detects the trail of the mouse and, sensing a potential meal, coils and readies itself for an ambush. The mosquito picks up the scent of the carbon dioxide released from your exhalations, as well as the aroma of your skin. Sensing the possibility of a meal, it lands on your arm. However, before it can pierce your skin, you slap your arm to swat it. Now, the mosquito gets away, but the sound of your hand slapping your arm disturbs the mouse, which in turn utters a squeak of alarm. Of course, it squeaks at a pitch that, while too high for the elephant to hear, is audible for the bat. The elephant, accustoming itself to the room, releases a deep infrasonic rumble, but at a pitch too low for the mouse or bat to detect. The rattlesnake, however, feels the vibration carried by the floor to its sensitive belly. You, however, are unable to detect either the ultrasonic squeaks of the mouse or the infrasonic rumble of the elephant. Your attention goes to the robin, whose singing you can hear, even though you are not able to pick up the intricate complexities encoded within its song. Looking at the robin, to you, its chest appears reddish-orange. However, it appears brown to the elephant, whose eyes only see varying shades of blue and yellow. The bumblebee also does not see red, since it sees via ultraviolet light. Indeed, the light spectrum it perceives is vibrating at much higher frequencies than your eyes can detect. The center of the potted sunflower upon which the bee sits appears as an ultraviolet target to both the bee and the robin. Should you look at the sunflower, it will appear completely yellow. Now, all of the beings in the room, or of all the beings, your sight is definitely the sharpest. And unlike the elephant or the bee, you can spot the spider perched quietly on its web. Now, let's change the scene a bit by suddenly having the lights go out. In this situation, you actually see very little. Like most humans who are suddenly thrust into darkness, you may freeze for a moment, but then you're likely to begin walking slowly forward with your arms extended in front of you to avoid colliding with any unseen obstacles. Now, the mouse does essentially the same. Although being armless, it uses its facial whiskers for detecting any obstacles in its path. In fact, by sweeping them back and forth several times per second, it is able to create a mental map of its immediate surroundings. Now, even if it scampers right between your feet, its little footsteps are way too faint for you to hear. However, they are clearly audible to the owl perched on the ceiling beam above. In fact, that owl has a disc of stiff feathers on its face that, well, in effect, funnel sound vibrations right into its tiny ears. Now, it just so happens that one of its ears is higher than the other, and this bit of asymmetry allows it to precisely detect the exact location of the mouse from the sound of its tiny footsteps. What's more, its hearing is so keen that even in the dark, it can decipher the position of the mouse on both vertical and horizontal planes. Precise location established, the owl dives for the mouse, but in Jung's example, it does so just as the mouse scurries into the striking range of the rattlesnake. The snake, of course, has very poor sight, but it has sensors in its snout that detect the infrared radiation emanating from warm objects. Indeed, you could say the snake sees in heat rather than by light, and the warm little body of the mouse is perceived as a glowing object in the darkness. Now, in fact, the snake perceives all the animals in the room as different sized glowing balls, with, the brightest areas indicating the various head and neck regions. In our little scenario, the snake strikes at the precise moment the owl swoops, and the two collide. Fortunately for the mouse, both miss their target. While this flurry of activity produces quite a lot of commotion, the little spider in the corner does not detect any of it. Its sensorial bubble is almost completely confined to the vibrations caught and transferred along its web. Now, this web, constructed by secretions from its own body, is a trap that functions as an extension of its senses. Should the mosquito accidentally stray into its sticky silken fibers, the spider will come to life by virtue of the vibrations in the web from the mosquito's struggle to go free. In fact, the spider reads the information conveyed by the vibrating web so well, it knows exactly where its prey is situated on its web. Thus, in a flash, it adroitly moves in for the kill. Well, let's develop the scenario a little more. As it attacks the mosquito, the spider is completely unaware of the high-frequency sound waves striking its own body and bouncing back to their source, the bat. Indeed, the bat's sonar is so accurate that it not only finds the spider in the dark, it locates it precisely enough to pluck it from its web without so much as damaging a single filament of the web. Now, since we have not yet mentioned the robin, let's create a scenario for it as well. So, of our original set of living beings in the room, the mosquito and spider are now dead. While the bat finishes its lunch, the robin seems to be otherwise occupied. Let's say all of this is taking place in late autumn. Outside, there is a touch of frost in the air, which signals to the robin it is time to fly to a warmer location. Now, robins are very attuned to Earth's magnetic field, and they can sense its flow even when inside a building. You see, the robin has an internal compass that, just like a compass held in one's hand, registers the energy flowing between Earth's north and south poles. Thus, when it is time to migrate, the robin takes off, heading due south. Remaining in the barn is our elephant, a well-fed bat, a bumblebee, a disappointed rattlesnake, and a slightly ruffled owl, a most fortunate mouse, and of course, you. Yet here is a curious fact. While all of you are sharing the same physical space, your individual experiences are radically different. Indeed, we could note this same phenomenon among the billions of Earth's other species, as well as for all the individual differences within each species. This is also true of humans. While most are able to distinguish between the colors of red and green, some cannot. Additionally, the detection of odor or olfaction varies widely among humans. Some have a very keen sense of smell, others almost none. And as Young points out, there are even some folks for whom body odor smells like vanilla. Indeed, within the entirety of Earth's sensosphere, if I may coin a new word, there are not only sights, sounds, smells, textures, and tastes to experience. There are also all manner of vibrations occurring perpetually, as well as radiation, such as heat, or as electric and magnetic fields. Yet, vast though Earth's sensorial spectrum may be, it turns out that any given sentient being is only able to detect a tiny percentage of the full reality. Indeed, it takes a wide and divinely construed range of sensorial capacities to cover this entire holarchy. As Young notes, every sentient being is enclosed within its own unique sensory bubble, perceiving but a tiny sliver of an immense world, close quote. Well, to give you an idea of how the animal kingdom uses individual senses, let us begin with taste. While mammals have tongues covered with taste buds, taste receptors are also located on the inside of their cheeks and in their pharynxes. Fish have taste buds on their outer lips, and in some cases, such as the catfish, all over their bodies, as do most worms. Scorpions and spiders have unusual taste organs that they drag over the ground as they walk. Spiders also taste with their legs. Insects have taste buds on their feet and lower legs, while birds have taste buds on the inner side of their hard beaks. Both squid and octopi taste their food by touching it with their arms. Adaptations for sight are many, varied, and quite amazing. The jumping spider has two central eyes that offer amazingly sharp vision, comparable to much larger animals such as pigeons, cats, and elephants. They have three pairs of secondary eyes, which makes the size of their visual field almost twice that of a single set of human eyes. These secondary eyes allow the spider to determine the presence of a moving object at a distance of 3 meters. And with their principal eyes, they are able to perceive form, detail, and even color. The ultra-fast vision of the killer fly allows it to capture quick-flying insects in the span of a human blink. A bay scallop has dozens of bright blue eyes along the rim of its shell. The brittle star, a type of starfish, uses its entire body as an eye, although only during daytime. The eyes of a chameleon lizard work independently, which allows it to see forward and behind simultaneously. Unlike other snakes, the cobra has good vision. In fact, it sees well enough to spot approaching objects from as far away as 100 meters. Like the rattlesnake, most snakes are essentially blind, and rather than actually seeing their prey, they track them by heat emissions in the same way as do vampire bats. Now, of course, such descriptions could go on, and because, as we earlier noted, the divinity is in the diversity. Now, our talk thus far may seem to be little more than a collection of facts and statistics, and for some of you, viewing the animal kingdom in any other light may be a stretch. However, some of you are inwardly dancing with a little awe, perhaps even a new respect for your brothers and sisters in a separate kingdom. Of course, humans are technically part of the great family of living beings here on Earth. You and all our animal cousins, or all your animal cousins, comprise a most remarkable holarchy in which the divine manifests in physical form. Of course, perhaps the most spiritually evolved trait of all participants in consciousness is that of altruism. While humans must work to cultivate altruism, sometimes for lifetimes, it seems more of a natural response for many animals. Indeed, the internet offers details for many such experiences, all of which are quite remarkable, really. And I encourage all of you to spend a little time searching out stories of animal heroism as you contemplate more deeply the presence of the divine indwelling animals. Likely, you will find the story that takes place in Ethiopia back in 2005. A group of men, 7, I believe, had kidnapped a 12-year-old girl. She had been held captive for a week, and their plan was to force her into marriage. However, a group of 3 lions, according to the local police, heard her cries, and descending upon the property, they scared the men and chased them away. However, the real mark of their altruism was shown in the fact that they remained keeping watch over the girl until the police and family members eventually arrived. Then, knowing the girl was safe, the lions peacefully took their leave. One of the most famous accounts of a heroic animal occurred in 1996. Visitors to Chicago's Brookfield Zoo were stunned to witness a 3-year-old boy fall into an enclosure that contained gorillas. Expecting the worst, the crowd instead witnessed an incredible act of empathy on the part of Djwhal, a gorilla mother herself. She carefully picked up the injured child and carried him to a doorway where she laid him down for the waiting paramedics. Now, as you might suspect, Djwhal was thereafter regarded as a national treasure, although she still lives in the occupied territory of the zoo. Apparently, she was compassionate enough to want the little boy's freedom, even if she could not have it her own. In 2014, an article appeared in the Times of India entitled, "Rampaging Elephant Smashes Up House, but then Saves Crying Baby Trapped Under Debris." It's an amazing story, really, wherein residents in the West Bengal's Purulia district reported a male elephant appearing one evening and demolishing their home. Watching, the couple stood by in horror, since their 10-month-old daughter was inside the house. The baby was crying from under the rubble of the demolished house, and the couple watched in amazement as the elephant, upon hearing the cry, simply dropped his rage and gently removed the pieces of brick and stone that had fallen on the baby. After clearing the debris and taking a final look at the baby, the elephant quietly retreated back into the nearby forest. Another elephant hero displayed her altruism in Phuket, Thailand in 2005. A tsunami unexpectedly hit the area, generating no sound in its arrival. When the first wave hit, Amber Owen, an 18-year-old visiting Thailand with her parents, was riding a young elephant named Ning Nong, to whom she had become quite attached. As reported by the Daily Mail, Ning Nong, sensed the danger at hand, ran inland with her precious cargo, thus saving the little girl's life. Well, there has apparently been only one recorded account of a humpback whale protecting a human. It happened in 2017 when biologist Nan Hauser was on a research trip to the Cook Islands in the South Pacific. She was approached by a 25-ton humpback who just wouldn't leave her alone. For more than 10 minutes, the whale swam right next to her, holding her at times with its fin, and even trying several times to put her on top of its head. Now, unbeknownst to Hauser, the two of them had been joined by a tiger shark, who apparently reconsidered going after his dinner when that would require an encounter with a gigantic whale. In 2009, a beluga whale in China saved a woman's life. Young Soon was taking part in a free diving contest in sub-freezing waters at Polarland Aquarium when her body reacted profoundly. She had descended some 20 feet beneath the surface, but was using no diving equipment. Suddenly, her limbs effectively became paralyzed by the extreme temperature and water pressure. Seeing what happened, a beluga whale, who was also in the tank, sprang into action and pushed her toward the surface. The act of heroism not only saved her life, it left a huge impression with all those who witnessed the event. In 2012, Robert Biggs was hiking in the Whiskey Flat Trail near Kernville, California. On the trail, he saw a mother bear with her cub near a stream. After quietly watching them for a little while, Biggs got up to continue on his way when suddenly he was jumped by a mountain lion who had latched onto his backpack. After struggling with the lion for about a minute, Biggs was suddenly rescued by the mother bear. She grabbed the mountain lion by the neck and threw it over her shoulder and then chased it away. As he collected himself after a very scary adventure, he had new respect for the protectiveness of Mama Bear. On a farm in Arkansas in 2017, Abigail Bruce received Speedy the goat for her 10th birthday. Only 2 days later, Speedy awakened Abigail in the middle of the night by jumping on her. When she was fully aroused from sleep, Abigail saw smoke everywhere. She ran to her parents' room and awakened them. The garage was on fire and the flames were beginning to enter the house. Fortunately, all of them, including Speedy, made it out of the house safely. Willie the parrot is another seemingly unlikely hero. Willie lives in Colorado, and his vocabulary of human words proved life-saving to a little girl. In 2008, Willie's human, Megan Howard, had been feeding a toddler whom she was babysitting. She left the room for a moment, whereupon the little girl began choking. Seeing something was dreadfully wrong, Willie became a feathered siren. Flapping his wings wildly, he began yelling, "Mama, baby, mama, baby." Well, thanks to Willie's raucous warning, Heather was able to save the little girl. During a snowstorm in 1919, Tongue, a Newfoundland dog, saved a sinking ship in Canada by grabbing a rope and dragging it to a nearby shoreline, saving all 92 passengers on board. Tang's story, along with that of other heroic animals, is documented in the book Dog Heroes: True Stories About Extraordinary Animals Around the World. Of course, not all heroic acts on the part of animals are to save humans. During the devastating wildfires in California in 2019, a horse risked her own life to rescue other horses from the raging fire. The horse, having herself been saved and taken to a safe area, suddenly bolted and ran back toward the inferno. Camera footage from the scene showed the horse running back to the burning ranch where it had lived, where she found two other panicking horses. Even in the midst of their terror, she was able to lead them away from the fire and back to the road where she had been taken. In 1996, an abandoned garage in Brooklyn caught fire. It had become the home of Scarlett the cat, who had recently given birth to kittens. Firefighters on the scene witnessed an incredible rescue mission going on while they were trying to extinguish the blaze. Scarlett, despite being severely burned herself, heroically moved each of her kittens from the burning building one by one. The rainy seasons on Africa's great savanna can prove deadly for many among the herds of animals that go there to graze. After one such rainy season, a hippo turned hero. While hippos are quite unpredictable and can be quite volatile, in this case, one showed immense kindness to a drowning zebra. Terrified by the raging water of an overly swollen river, the zebra had lost all hope of coping with the potentially deadly scene. The hippo nudged the frightened zebra across the rushing water, lending its own massive body to support the zebra when the force of the water was too much. The zebra was ultimately delivered to an outcropping of rocks on the other side. While you will find numerous accounts of heroic dogs, cats, horses, whales, dolphins, even pigs, sea lions, and rabbits, I will leave you with the amazing account of Mandy, a very caring goat. One day, Noel Osborne, a farmer near Melbourne, Australia, was busily at work cleaning a lot on his farm. He had an accident with a piece of farm equipment that shattered his hip and knocked him into a pile of manure. Now, being a bachelor farmer, there was no one else on the farm to intervene on his behalf. For 5 days, he lay in excruciating pain, yelling out for help. There was no one to hear his cries except Mandy, his goat. Heroically, Mandy used her body to keep him warm and even allowed him to drink of her milk to stay alive. Eventually, another farmer came to check on his friend, and Mandy became a local legend. try to see that they all have value in their respective contributions to Earth's evolution, and are not merely here to help and support humans. It's nice when that happens, of course. However, the animals should benefit from the arrangement, and not just the human. You see, it is pointless to get caught up in trying to prove that humans have a higher path than do animals. Indeed, each evolving expression of consciousness has its own perfect path that none other can accomplish. May you savor this teaching, and may you experience a little more awe for the ever-present awareness that arises with each physical expression of the divine. Then, learn to love other life kingdoms with the same degree of love that is offered to you. That is how you can spiritualize matter. And I hope this assignment is important to all of you. I love you. I bless you. And I celebrate with you the presence of the divine, greeting you in love and wonder always. I thank you